On iPhone 2.
My name is Kyle Matthews. I founded a site called modmyi.com. And I'm going to talk about running a repository. And as I was writing this, I kind of realized I think that I'm going to do it almost as a history of kind of where repositories started and then how we got there, and maybe in the questions afterwards you guys can ask me interesting things as well. So we were the first third-party Cydia repository. Sorry, Cydia. It's hard for me to, the only time I say Cydia is when I'm around Jay, and I'm sorry.
I don't care.
Okay. If you don't care, then I'm just going to say Cydia then. And we were actually the second installer repo, if you guys remember that. How many of you guys were in the jailbreak world during installer?
Yeah.
All right, so actually not a lot of you comparatively. Yeah, so we, when Jay, well, I'll go to the next one. Let's start with apps. So in 2000, what is that date? 2007, Nighthawk, who I haven't heard from in quite a while, created the first third-party app. This was for the iPhone. It was a simple hello world. If you guys were in here earlier, Jay helped us make one during the development talk that he gave. And it was more a proof of concept than anything, but that was in July of 2007. And then it went pretty quick from there as far as how we got to being able to manage packages on the iPhone. So he made that first Hello World in 2007, and then in July of 2007, and in August, AppTap released Installer. So that was really only a month and a half later that we had a somewhat working repository system where we now had this installer app, and you could install apps directly from there, which was really interesting. They had the idea of community repositories, which it's interesting as well that actually happened. If you look at the App Store, obviously the App Store doesn't do that. And when AppTap released, they could have easily just said, if you want to install apps or have your tweaks or your themes or anything like that, you have to come to us. Well, they didn't want to do all that work. They wanted to focus on the development of installer. And so they said, look, why don't we have other people do repositories? And STE was the first one, and we wound up being the second after that. And obviously they had their own that was installed when you installed installer. Installed installer. So then in 2008, so shortly after, just a few months later, along comes a new way of doing this, which was Cydia. And everyone was kind of happy with installer. It was working. It had a lot of people that were using it. It had a few repositories, and it was all XML files. It was kind of cumbersome to work with. It was kind of cobbled together, and Cydia ran on Debian, and it was a thing that had been around for a long time, but we repositories said, well, we already have installer, and really Yusef Francis, who I don't know if you guys know him, but he's not here. He convinced us to kind of use Cydia first, and I think he actually was the first person to convince you to use a GUI. Is that correct?
He's the person who convinced me to write Cydia.
So he actually convinced Jay to write Cydia. So he's kind of the reason that we have what we have now. At least he was the inception of that, and then we all kind of got started. And then just to kind of give a little bit of timeline, the very first images of what the App Store would actually look like were released in March of 2008, and Cydia launched in February of 2008. So all of this, we had gone through installer, we had gone through Nighthawk's app, we had or his Hello World. All of that was all done before the App Store had even had leaked images of what it would look like, which was this. So then I'll go on and talk a little bit. The first theme was also released in July. we do a lot with themes. The artists are a big part of our community, obviously, as well as developers. But Mod My Eye actually released the first theme, if you can call it that. We called them skins back then. And all we did was figure out where all the icons were, removed them. Cody Overcash, our other founder, made them black and white, and we put them back on. And that picture in the middle was all of the commands that it took to do that. It was all just SCP. There was no, I don't think FTP would even worked, or SFTP on the phone. Everything was done via command line, which was really cumbersome, and so it was a hard thing to do at the time. And then on the picture on the right there is actually the second theme. Some person that was on the site came along and made some cool icons, and from there, that obviously grew quite a bit. And everything that we did as far as a repository was all manual. So when you sent in a theme or a tweak or anything that needed to go in either installer or Cydia, we would have to manually create all the files. We would have to actually do everything kind of on our own there manually, and it took a long time. So in 2010, this is 2 years from when Cydia came out, we released our dev portal, which was really helpful for us, and it took hours off of the time that we spend every day actually managing the packages that you guys submit to Mod My Eye. So everything is still done manual as far as we look at every single file, we look at all the content, all that is done still, for security reasons. But it was a lot easier for us to easily browse through a list of what everything was done. In the tweak, what files were included. We could look through the files all from a web interface rather than going through individual emails or a forum post or all these things, and took hours off the time there. The other cool thing about the dev portal that we feel like is it gave developers and theme artists an easy place for them to see all of their statistics, all of what packages they had out, what version was up right now, and kind of manage all that at one place. And so we actually put all of that up there. The statistics for free apps, or free tweaks or themes are all actually managed by the repository. So when you have a paid tweak, you can go through Cydia and see how many sales you've had, but if it's free, those statistic systems are all done through either Big Boss or our system or Zod or whoever you have there. And so that's kind of what we did there. So a few numbers, we get over 80 packages a day. In busier times, we can get 100, 110 packages submitted to us in a single day. We reject the vast majority of those, 80% of those. We maybe will publish 10 to 20 actual packages each day, and those will be themes, tweaks. Some of those will be updates even. But people always say, well, you guys just let anything through. Well, the reality, people are laughing. The reality is we actually reject the vast majority, and if you could see the things that we rejected, it would make the things that we approve maybe make a little more sense. As far as where do we draw the line, that's a constant problem that we have is, how do we say what is quality and what is not? I can look at it and say, that's not quality, but it's a lot better than most things that are submitted. So you guys are welcome to be mad at me and talk about because I get that comment a lot, but you should see the things that we reject. And it takes on average 4 to 6 hours every day just in managing packages that have been submitted and talking with developers and theme artists and just in repo work, that's 4 to 6 hours. And actually, for the past year and a half or so, my brother, Tyler Matthews, who was in New York last year, if you guys were there, has been doing most of that management. So he does that every day. So when you send an email at 3 a.m. and at 4 a.m. you're wondering why we haven't replied, it's because he's sleeping. But I kind of sympathize with Sebastian there. People are like, I sent 5 emails to you. Well, when did you do that? Between 4 and 7 a.m. Okay, well I was asleep and then I was taking a shower. I have a life too. And that's basically what we have there. So I guess I could take a little questions afterwards during the questions time if you guys have anything to you want to know about running a repository. And you probably already know how to get a hold of us, but there it is.